ZM everyone, welcome to day 3 of the Zcash Contributors Workshop. So far, we've talked about Zcash, talked about the ecosystem, the infrastructure that Zcash runs on. Today, we'll be talking about how you, as a creative, can contribute to the Zcash ecosystem. And then we have a couple of people who have been long-time contributors, in the Zcash ecosystem. They're going to tell us what they do and how they contribute here. So yeah, we'll be going first with Corey. Corey is a designer and he's been contributing to the Zcash ecosystem for a very long time. So we're going to invite Corey up to speak and share with us how he does what he does in the Zcash ecosystem. Is that them, Corey?
All right, good. This is day 3 of the workshop, and it has been amazing so far. And yes, like El said, I'm Croy, and I'm a designer with ZEC and that is how I contribute my own quota to the Zcash ecosystem. Quickly, I will share my screen, and so we go straight into the business of today. I would hope that there are other designers in this call right now. And it's a workshop, so at any point you have something to say or a question to ask, please interrupt me. Yeah. Give me a sec. I want to share my screen. All right. Can we see my screen? Can we see my screen? Yeah. Yeah. All right. So yes, I will be talking briefly on how we'll be, bridging the gap and how designers can contribute to the Zcash ecosystem. I during the course of the preparation for this presentation, I was able to niche something down that says crypto is built by developers, obviously, but the ease of adoption rests on the shoulders of designer. You know, when you advance, especially in the crypto community, if you are not a dev, you do not write codes, you have very minimal knowledge of what crypto is, your go-to isn't, because even if you ask most of these guys the questions, they only just end up like confusing you because you're probably not familiar with the terms they use. You're probably not familiar with even the softwares or the applications they use because you are more on the front end and how it works, what the interface looks like, and what the user experience even feels like. So yeah, crypto is built by developers, but the ease of its adoption rests on the shoulders of designers. You know, when you're trying to relate like crypto news, for instance, or educational content, or even as far as product design, say building an app or building a website for the course of, there are so many would I say like apps and websites that they can solve a lot of problems, but because of what the interface looks like, they fail to do that. And that is where designers come in. And Zcash is no different. There is a place for designers to, you know, come in, contribute, and help the broader Zcash ecosystem. So yeah, where does the designer come in? Where does the designer come in? In zero knowledge privacy tech like Zcash, it is incredibly advanced mathematically, and like it's incredibly advanced mathematics. But to the average person, terms like shielded pool, unified addresses, and viewing keys sound like a foreign language. I mentioned this earlier. But the job of a designer in Web3 isn't just to make things look pretty. is to translate complex cryptographic security or even educational content into an intuitive, accessible human experience. So when you hear contributors workshops or you hear things crypto related, privacy tech related, web3 related, it is not, you are not on the sideline as a designer. It is not, you're not relegated. It is not just for these guys that do the mathematics. It's not for these guys that write the codes alone. There is a place for you. You are not just there just to make it look pretty, but you are giving the recipient or the receiver an easier way to grasp this message. When I initially started with Zecob, at the point um in my work with Zecob, I did a DYK series. I don't know if there's anybody in chat that was familiar with that. It ran for about 5-6 months, mid last year, to about the end of last year. And what I tried to do with DYK series, DYK meaning did you know, is to use design, posters and flyers to help people understand the complex parts of Zcash. There are things like ZK snarks, node commitment trees. There are a lot of these terms that will look so big for, say, you that's entry level or you that's try to contribute just design wise and you don't have, in quotes, tech knowledge. But that is where we come in. These complex things that these devs do, how do we break it down that just the layman sees it and has an idea, even if he doesn't have the complete story of what it is? So the role of a designer, not just for Zcash or like privacy focused tech, not just Web3, but in the life we live today as a whole, we are there not just to make things look pretty, like I said earlier, but to make complex things simple. We prioritize the user interface and the user's experience. Moving on, we're going to be talking about entry points for designers within the Zcash ecosystem. So I think as at the last time Elzz did attended a summit, the Women in DeFi summit, you know, as she's onboarding a lot of people, I was opportune to be in that very event with her, and you see the curiosity in people's minds. Apart from the fact that they are just getting to know Zcash for the first time, the next thing in their mind is, how can I contribute? What do I do? So if I'm not a a developer. I don't write codes, but I mean, I use design softwares very well. Adobe Creative Cloud or, Corel Draw, whatever design softwares you use, these are entry points, or these are how you can contribute to the Zcash ecosystem. The very first, or the most linear, the one that almost everybody is aware of, is the ZEC Bounties. And now I I think I picked up my very first ZEC bounty in 2024. And it is that I basically didn't know nobody. ZEC bounties are open source micro tasks that reward contributors directly in ZEC. They act as a sandbox where anyone can bypass formal job applications, claim a public task that fits their skill sets, in this case, design, and instantly prove their capabilities to the wider community. And now, like it says, anyone can bypass formal job applications. That is basically how it felt for me at the time. So at the time, it was D work, and slowly we are transitioning to ZEC bounties, and it's gonna be about the same process or even better. And the idea is, you know, If a bounty is dropped, for instance, and you feel like I have the ability to do this, this is what I've done in the past, this is what I can do. You apply for the task, and there is no preferential treatment as to say, oh no, it's this person that is always going to get it, and it's that person. No, no. It's like the description says, it's a permissionless sandbox where anyone. So if you are looking to contribute to the Zcash ecosystem and, earn ZEC Bounties is one way to go about it. Another entry point is community collaborations. There are already existing Zcash projects. Like if you're in Nigeria, there's Zcash Nigeria. If you're in Brazil, there's Zcash Brazil. And you feel you have some skill sets that even it not necessarily even group projects. Like Elzz runs an individual ambassador project. It's They said that there is beauty in collaboration. Now, I know this is what you do, and I see this is what you can do better. These are the services I offer, and I feel like if I do this and I do that, you present the metrics. I think everybody's going to give you every new well-meaning person will give you listening ears and probably even a chance to go forward, and that's what leads us to proposals. Now, apart from collaborating with um existing Zcash projects that are running like ZK AV Club, I mean, one too many times they reach out for designers. What can you do? I can remember a time, was it last year? Han reached out to the SubDAO, the design SubDAO, to create a new logo for ZK Wallet. So there are numerous ways to contribute in the Zcash ecosystem as a designer. But you wouldn't really get to be aware of these things if you do not engage in community events. You turn up for workshops like this, in the Discord server, you exchange one or two like ideas with people. You talk, be open. There's a design server even within ZEC channel. And whatever you think, this is nice. The link to the DYK. A couple of them are still on Twitter, on our X page, except I give you a drive link that has every single one of them. I think I'll drop that after this. But for right now, anybody that wants to see the DYK post could go to Twitter or just, search a hashtag ZEC DYK series, I think. Should be that hashtag. You should be able to see all of the DYK posts under that. And then, like I said, proposals is another entry point into another way to contribute to the Zcash ecosystem via design. If you feel there's something that could be done better, you submit a proposal either to, for instance, ZEC DAO, and say, I think this can be changed and that can be changed. Why you think it can be changed? And then the DAO discusses about it and then pass the verdict. And if it is a solution that is needed at the time, that is your entry point into contributing to the Zcash ecosystem. And most importantly, how do I contribute? What design skill sets do I have to contribute to the Zcash ecosystem? As a designer, you can contribute to the Zcash ecosystem via static graphics design. It could be posters, it could be flyers, it could be printed um, flyers or posters, it could be infographics, it could be icons. I know if you go to the ZEC wiki, you will notice a couple icons that isometric icons that are on the wiki, and it came from a design effort, and it came from, oh, this is good, but it can be better. And basically that is how life goes. So as a designer, you are not just looking for flaws. No, that's not the way to go about it. It's what has somebody done before me, and what do I think I can do better? How can I improve on this without, you know, seeing what was as less? I don't know if you get what I'm saying. So as a designer within the Zcash ecosystem, you can contribute, even if it's ZEC Bounties, for instance. There are too many times there are bounties where you have to do posters or flyers. So if you are listening right now and you want to contribute to the Zcash ecosystem through bounties, please watch out for ZEC Bounties. Motion graphics they also come in very handy, because there are people that prefer moving picture or motion picture to what static. That is how they can relate properly. That is how they can, immerse themselves into the experience of that content. So if you're a motion designer and you feel like your skill sets is what Zcash needs, please use the suggestion. I think there is a way, if I'm not wrong, um, Squirrel, you could suggest a task, and then if it's needed at the time, that bounty will be given to you. And lastly, product design. This is one that one too many people ignore in the design space, especially with Zcash. We think there is no room for product design. Now, we have one too many wallets within the Zcash ecosystem, but one particularly stand out because of its product design, and that's Zodo. The UI is pretty much straightforward, and even if you have the most basic knowledge about crypto, in fact, I think even when Elzz onboarded people at WID, it was Zodo wallet that was the go-to, because the UI is straightforward. And now, you as the designer within the Zcash ecosystem, there are too many things we are seeing. There are wallets, there are websites, there are apps, there are things that even while during this hackathon right now, there are people creating things. And one thing the dev guys don't have that you have is that eye for perfection, is that eye for um apart from something being aesthetic, it has a function behind it. So the UI is on point, the UX, the user experience is on point. So you as a designer, you are not relegated. You are very, very much welcome to contribute to the Zcash ecosystem. And lastly, we already have our brand identity guide up on the wiki. So for every designer that is, wanting to um contribute to the Zcash ecosystem, you need these guidelines when doing designs for ZEC. It will guide you on how to use the logos and how not to use the logos, what colors to use, what colors not to use, how the colors should be combined, what type of text to use, and so on and so forth. It's a very thorough guide. And if at any point in time anything confuses you in that document, you can always reach out to me. Thanks, guys. I will take any questions right now if there are any.
Thank you so much, Croy, for that wonderful presentation. So yeah, like Croy said, we'll be taking questions. If you have any, please do well to send in your questions or unmute your mic to ask. We'll take that for a few minutes before we move on to our next presenter.
All right, all right. Good evening once again. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I had to join with my mobile. I believe my PC is having some issues connecting. So yeah, um, that was a wonderful presentation, Croy. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you for that. So I am Omega Wolf, a video creator and content creator, and I've been contributing to the Zcash ecosystem for a while now, probably a few months, through ZEC. So, and one thing I can say is that you can take everything Croy just said about designing and just replace it with video, and everything will pretty much be the same. So, in Zcash ecosystem as a whole, in ZEC, there are different pathways for you to contribute. Apart from um, maybe uh, participating in the weekly bounties that are posted on the work, you can, if you notice a problem in the ecosystem that you feel that, oh, this problem can be solved by communicating the solution through a video, you can as well put in a proposal. And yeah, if the DAO deem it fit, they will vote for it to pass. And there are different ways you can contribute to the ecosystem through ZEC, through all the community that we have, Zcash Nigeria, Zcash Brazil. Like there are so many opportunities. But today, I would like to just briefly explain the processes that I go through when creating Zcash videos. So yeah, let me just say this. The first ever video I ever made for Zcash last year, I think it was during the 9th anniversary last year. I don't think I know 70% of everything I know now. When I made that video, I just decided to just make a video celebrating the ecosystem for the 9th anniversary. And this is not to say that you can just start um, posting anything or saying anything without having the basic information about or basic knowledge about the ecosystem. It's just to say that all these big words, all these big terms that you hear, it's it gets clear with time. In time, you come to understand everything. It's not something you just grasp immediately. So, and this is knowing this is going to lead us to the 4 processes of producing video for Zcash for those interested in creating videos. So, I usually go through. Okay, first of all, before we start creating any kind of video, I presume every one of us here have some type of audience, whether you have an account on Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, wherever you have some kind of audience, and this audience can be from different backgrounds. Some of them might be total beginners that don't even know anything about crypto, anything about Web3, and some of them might be people who already use the Web3 tech, but they are not just into privacy yet. They are not just into Zcash yet. So you need to understand your audience first before you start deciding on the type of video you want to make. Now that you've identified your audience, the next stage is to do your research. Now, the way I approach doing my research for any Zcash video is I don't just maybe take a topic and start dumping the information out there. What I do is I think, oh, this particular feature, this particular aspect of Zcash, what would a commoner, what common misconception would a normal person have about this certain aspect? Once I answer that, now my solution is to be to counter that, to correct that misconception. This will now lead me to do the appropriate research to find the solution to this. So that is how, and there are many platforms where you can get accurate information in Zcash. One of them being zecop.wiki. I believe there's nothing about the Zcash ecosystem that you need to know that you would not find there. Just go on there, search for any keyword that you want to know about. You get on all the information there. There's also the Zcash forum and yeah, and other official documentation. So you do your research based on whatever topic, whatever feature you want to talk about. And after this, you script your videos. Now, scripting your videos, like I said earlier, is going to depend on the kind of audience you have, the people you want to communicate to through videos. So are they beginners that you have to simplify some certain terms for, or are they already, technical people that we can just give it to them like that? So is what you need to have in mind when you are scripting any Zcash video you are producing. And the next stage is the shooting. So you have your scripts ready now, you shoot. And I believe this is the part where most creators or most people that do want to contribute through video, they get stuck because they believe maybe they need to have all the latest gadgets or whatever. Um, from my experience, I believe this kind of feeling, this kind of need never truly goes away. So it's your message that matters. All these expressive gears, lighting, and everything, it's secondary. The most important thing is this message about privacy that I want to pass across. So if you have any type of lighting, any type of camera, whether it's your phone camera, it is enough to push the message out there. Just set it down, record what you have, and put it out. Then the post production, the editing, and while you're editing Zcash videos, like Croy mentioned earlier, we have our visual identity for ZCorp, for Zcash. So try to incorporate that and use it properly where advisable. So yeah, that is basically how I go through creating videos for ZCorp. And apart from creating talking head videos, there is also motion design. I believe that kind of classifies under video editing somehow. So if you're someone that don't like to sit in front of the camera and you have design skills, that's also another pathway for you to contribute to Zcash. So you can either make talking head videos or you can make motion design to explain basic stuff. Because believe it or not, videos are actually like a good way to pass information across there because I don't know, most people, I won't say more, but I think enough people don't actually have that time to maybe go and read some long form article or thread or whatever. But a 40 seconds, a 1 minute video can inform someone a lot in a very short time. And while they are just scrolling on the internet, you have the chance to just pass that message across in that short time. So I believe it's very, very effective. So if you are a video creator, you have different pathways to contribute to Zcash. You can apply to bounties every week. I believe every Monday. Bounties are posted every Monday. You can send in proposals if there are certain features you think you just want to take your time and create like a proper video, a proper series to explain this concept. You can put in a proposal and you can collaborate with communities to produce videos for them. So there are so many things, and you can even, there might be some pathways that are not mentioned here that don't even exist yet. Now it's left for you and your problem solving skills to think up a solution that we might never know that we needed. But once you bring it up and it's actually a good thing, believe me, you have like a very high percent chance of it being accepted. So yeah, these are basically the things you should look out for if you are planning to contribute through videos in Zcash. So I'll be stopping here. If you have any questions, so just tag me in the chats and I'll give you an answer.
All right. Thank you so much, Omega, for that very, very wonderful presentation. Thank you for sharing your process. All right. Now we know how those videos that you post, how they come about. And I think that this is, maybe I should try videos sometime now that I know how you do it. Thank you so much, Omega, for your presentation. We'll be taking questions as usual. So if you have questions about video creation, do want to ask your question, you can also type in the chat. Yeah, you can also type in the chat if you have questions about video creation, right, in the Zcash ecosystem. And one thing that you've noticed that our speakers today have talked about is how you don't have to, you can be innovative, right? You don't have to wait for a particular bounty for you to contribute. There are people who, I'm sure if you check on Twitter, there are people who create like content and whatnot about a particular ecosystem, right? You could find out something that maybe a particular concept that people don't even really understand, and you have actually researched properly about the task, right, on the work, and you'll be able to get like a bounty for yourself or something. So yeah, that's several ways to actually contribute here. It doesn't just have to be, via like a particular bounty. So thank you so much, Omega, for that presentation once again. So right about now, we will be moving on to um moving on to how to contribute as a writer in the Zcash ecosystem. And I will be taking that session, right? Yeah, I think I'll start by saying that writing is one thing that has been overexploited in the, let's say, in fact, in the world, not just in the Web3 crypto space, right? Is one thing that has been overexploited in the sense that everybody now writes by virtue of just being on social media, right? Everybody publishes anything they like, right? But there's usually let's say there's usually levels to it. There are people who are so skilled in using AI to write what they write. There are people who also use AI and are not even that skilled, right? So there's an entire, like, if you go online and like if you go on Twitter, for example, and search Zcash, you'd see several things, right, about Zcash written by so many different people with um understanding, different thought processes and all of that. Now, as a person that's coming into this space and you want to contribute as a writer to the Zcash ecosystem, Omega did, I'll try to share my process, right? It depends first off on, do you actually have the skill? There are people who are very skilled writers. Some people who are storytellers, some people who know how to do technical writing. Like they know how to go very much in depth, do research, bring out citations and all of that, right? So there are like different grades to this writing, and there's usually who your audience is. Who are you writing for? Right? When I first started writing in the Zcash ecosystem, I was putting out articles. Um, I was putting out articles on Medium. Yeah, when Twitter started the articles thing, I started putting out articles on Twitter also. But I was very quick to understand that my audience are for they were very new to privacy, right? Not new to crypto and all of that. Yes, sometimes they'll just comment. You know how it is on Twitter. People just comment, nice work, nice this, but I was not passing the message across, right? And our goal here is to use our skills to preach the privacy message, to preach the Zcash message. That's what we're trying to achieve. So if you're talking or you are designing or whatever it is that you're doing and people are not living with the message, they're not understanding what you're trying to pass across them, I think that you're doing a like terrible job at communicating, right? So I took a step back and decided to not just drop technical stuff, right? Start to explain these technicalities. Because when I would post stuff about the technical stuff, yeah, I would get accolades from like people that already understood. But my goal was to bring more people into the Zcash ecosystem, right? So I had to like switch up my writing, right, to fit what I wanted to achieve. And that's where the whole concept of being a content strategist comes in, right? And I decided to design my content in a way that anybody, even if you've never heard of Zcash, you've never heard of privacy, the moment you like get to read that post, you actually get at least an understanding of what we're talking about. Yeah, so that's how I evolved my writing from being overly technical to something that people could understand. And then from people understanding, they're getting curious. Okay, so you're always talking about Zcash. I've explained so many things, but I want to know more. I want to get into this ecosystem. And now that's the goal, right? So you should always know what you are trying to achieve with the content that you are putting out, with what you are writing, right? What are you trying to get people to know about this thing? Are you trying to um are you speaking to an overly technical audience, or are you speaking to beginners, right? Or are you speaking to intermediate like level people, right? So those are the things that I consider when I'm putting out content, right? I explain a lot. I try to break down simple things when things are happening in the ecosystem. Those for me, those are opportunities for me to like teachable moments for me to like explain further. Sometimes maybe you see posts from maybe the founder, from maybe from Zuko, maybe from Josh, some technical stuff, and people are wondering what is going on here. For some people might understand, like people that are deep into the ecosystem, they might get those things, right? Or I do my best to take those things, break them down, right? But then there's the truth is you can't just start off like random person, you're coming to break stuff down. If you yourself don't understand at least the basics, of what Zcash is about. And that's why we decided to hold this workshop to like this period. So that you're coming in fresh into the Zcash ecosystem. I believe that so far from day one to day two, we've laid down the foundation, right? Of like the various things, like the little things, what the ecosystem is about, what we do, how we do what we do, how ZEC Snacks works, and all of those things. Now it's now up to you to actually do your own research, like research more, right? Okay, so you've heard about Ironwood, right? And they've been talking about it on Twitter, on the Zcash forum, and all of that. You want to write about it. For somebody that is just coming in, you probably want to go and research, do your own research. How do you do that? You're going to check, like, scrape the entire space. Right now, the conversation is happening where on Twitter and it's happening on the Zcash forum. You want to go and read everything that you can about it, right? Gather every information that you can. Then you want to also go back in time, history. Okay, so why are we like talking about Ironwood? Why are we thinking of maybe having this new shielded pool and all of those things? You want to research properly before you start to write your own content. It always shows in your content when you have not properly researched. They keep saying that you can't give what you don't have, and that's just how it is. You do not understand something when you write about it, people can tell. People can actually tell that this person just used ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is to put this together, right? But when you're writing from a place of understanding, something that you've researched and now you can, like, in a way, confidently talk about it, it shows in your writing. And when people read it, depending on who your audience is, you already know the kind of things that your audience can absorb, right? You put it down in a way that your audience can understand. You use a language that your audience is fluent in. If you have a predominantly English audience, you don't want to be writing in maybe Spanish or whatever it is, right? So you tailor your stuff to to your audience as it might be. And then you can also use visuals to enhance these things that you're trying to talk about. Back then, when I should do technical articles, I tried to include some visuals that would explain the things that I was talking about. And it actually does help. And that's where collaboration comes in. Koi mentioned that earlier. You might want to collaborate. You see someone that is writing very well and maybe you want to contribute, you want to also help. You can actually collaborate with that person, help create visuals to explain what that person is trying to pass across, right? So there's power in that synergy, right? Good writing, good visuals. It always helps to like pass the message across very more efficiently, right? Now, after doing your research, like I said, you are putting down stuff for your audience. Your audience is your priority, right? And like I said, why we are contributing to the Zcash ecosystem as creatives is to make the entire thing easier, right? The complex privacy stuff, the complex Zcash stuff, we want to make it easier for people to understand. And the thing is, when people understand, then they can now be onboarded. They can now start using the tech. And that's what we're here to do. We want people to be able to get the message and okay, now start, okay, let me start using Zcash, let me start using privacy tools and all of that. So yeah, make sure that your messaging is as clear as it can be. And right now, one thing I try to do is try to be concise. We are in the days of very short attention span, right? One of the reasons again why I don't stick to articles that much anymore. People just want to like look at something, spend at most 30 seconds. If they're not able to grasp what the thing, the concept is about, they just leave it and move on to the next. People have really short attention spans these days. So aside from people talk about or have a captivating hook, sometimes it's not everything that you would write, especially when you're writing about a protocol, that you would need to have all of those captivating hooks because you might pull the reader in with your hook. And then when person is reading, person is like, okay, so how does this concern me? right? So sometimes you don't hooks don't always work, especially when you're talking technical stuff or trying to explain technical stuff. Hooks don't always work. What works is analogies. Give analogies about stuff. You are talking about let's say for example, you want to talk about how transparent transactions, shielded transaction work. Look for an everyday analogy that you can use to describe that, right? Use something like go from known to unknown. Use something that they already know about, something that they are used to, something that your audience is used to describe something that they do not already know. Use it to explain, use the analogy. That always works. And it works way better than a hook. A hook just gets them in, and once you start speaking complex stuff again, they're off, right? So you start with an analogy that they can relate to, and then they're like, oh, that's true. Maybe you want to talk about why privacy is necessary, and then you talk about how, oh, your BVN, your government is saying everything that you're doing thanks to your BVN, something like that. And people are like, oh, that's true. Or maybe they're wondering how is that even possible? You know, something that they can relate to. Start from there before you move to the complex stuff that you're trying to explain, right? So that always helps. And now, talking about how you can contribute with your writing skills to the Zcash ecosystem, there are so many things out there, like complex terminologies, new updates always coming up from time to time. You can use your writing skills to explain this thing better to people, right? So everyday people, people who are not technical, right? Since you're not technical yourself, or you actually have like some background knowledge on Zcash and privacy, it's easier for you to use your background knowledge, research, and then explain it in your own words. So at this point, you're going to be explaining like you're also going to be explaining like an everyday person to those people. So they understand what you are saying better than maybe when they read like a very complex NU7 upgrade kind of article you get. So you try to break things down and make it easier for people to understand. And now there are different um ways that you can do that. There are usually bounties, on the ZEC Hub, the work. And if you have something that you want to write about, you can suggest it. I know that Corey already mentioned this earlier, so you can suggest a bounty if that bounty is not already available. You can do walkthrough tutorials. Yes, I know that most people are very, very used to the visual type of tutorials, but you can also do a written walkthrough, right? Or maybe on maybe how to install a particular wallet, how to do a particular thing, in the Zcash ecosystem, right? So yeah, like Omega said, there are sometimes we might not even know that the ecosystem might not even know that we actually need this particular thing until you bring it to our notice or something. So yeah, there's always that's where problem solving skills come in. Think about how you can help, how you can make so and so thing better. There's always opportunities. So I'll be rounding up here and taking questions. For those of us who would like to contribute via writing, feel free to ask your questions. And this is what we'll be rounding up for today, anyways. But yeah, feel free to ask your questions. We haven't taken questions today. I want to get that. That's because everybody like understands what we've been trying to say. But yeah, feel free to ask your questions right now, guys. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. One thing that you should know is that as a creative, it's always imperative for you to develop your problem solving skills. It helps you see areas where you can be useful to any ecosystem that you are in, right? Um, I'm sure you've heard from like everybody that has spoken today. There's usually like if you wait for bounties, sometimes you might not see something that maybe resonates with you or the kind of way you create. If you're an AI person, maybe you can design with AI, you can make videos with AI. Sometimes you might not see those kind of bounties, right? That is written just like that on the work platform. You can create something for yourself, right? So think of how you can solve problems. Think of how you can bridge the knowledge gap in the Zcash ecosystem. And please know that it's always imperative for you to do your research. You don't want to um, misinform people, right? Misinformation is something that is everywhere. Like we see people like saying things that they know nothing about online, and you don't want to be one of those people. So do well to research. If you have questions as you research, for maybe a particular kind of content that you want to create, you can always reach out or ask questions even in the ZCOP channel, tag people, and people will give you their own ideas, or they might even give you resources like where you can go and check for more information on that particular thing that you want to create about, right? So yeah, it's a big family here in Zcash ecosystem. I mean, everybody's always ready to help, ready to answer your questions. So please do not hesitate to, always ask questions when you need direction. And if you also need to proofread your work, feel free to reach out. Right. So yeah, we're rounding up here. Thank you guys. Um, yeah, bye.